Welcome to Soulful Sundaze.
Okay, it sounds right.
Come on now, drum roll.
I think there's something to narrowing down that sister circle.
Welcome to Soulful Sundaze, where we are bringing you soul-inspired conversations. I am your host, Lena Anthony, and this is my beautiful, talented co-host, Judy Johnson.
Hi, guys.
And my other amazing, talented co-host, Raquel Ballou.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to our show today. We are talking purity,
Yes.
the dangers of giving away oneself prematurely, mind, body, and soul.
Shall we cheers to that
Yeah,
before
we
we
need
jump
to.
in there?
We need to.
This is a heavy
Deep topic.
heavy. Click,
Yes,
ladies.
yes,
Click, click.
Soulful Sundays.
I want to know, what are y'all definition of purity, first of all?
Woo, I'm gonna let you start.
Where you want me to start? Because I got on
You
white.
look pure.
Listen, looks can be deceiving. Okay, no, I'm kidding.
You're like an angel.
Purity, thank you, sweetheart. Purity, I don't even have a definition for it because it has not been something in my life that I can necessarily say that I followed. I think when I think of purity, the only essence of purity that I can embrace myself around is God. He has been the purest form of everything in my life. I feel like purity is something that is the first thing that the enemy comes to steal from us. It is the first thing. When I think of purity, I think of innocence. I think of a very pure place, and I think of that being the very thing that was snatched from me at a very early age.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I agree. I think purity is, like you said, the most beautiful, purest form is God. And I feel like purity can come, like I said, mind, body, soul. It can come in so many different forms. And a lot of times you go through life, which challenges you and leads you to losing your purity. So like she said, you can get your innocence snatched away from you. It can be just a mind thing where like maybe you come from a home where they're constantly using profanity. Like that can take away from a pure tongue. You know what I mean? There can be so many different forms of purity. Losing your virginity at such a young age can be purity. And a lot of times it's not a decision, like she said, it's something that's just forced away from you.
Jeez.
I would say, in addition to innocence, the word that comes to mind for me when I think of purity is untouched. And what I mean specifically when it comes to mind, body, and spirit, sometimes we let things into our space, into our safe space, and we are tampered with. And we allow ourselves to be tampered with, unknowing whether we're immature, whether we just are, inexperienced or stupid. We made a wrong decision.
Yeah.
And in that, we are touched or tampered with. And I think it definitely can murky or muddy up that water of what is pure and what is clear and what is understood, if I can be clear in that. And you even brought up something when it comes to purity as far as virginity. And I am curious. I know that is a very sensitive topic in our culture. I don't care what generation you are from. Nobody wants to talk about the birds and the bees. But it's so important because I don't remember getting that birds and the bees conversation. I remember when I was, for lack of a better term, became a woman in terms of cycle, menstrual cycle. It was my older sister that had to give me that talk and show me the ropes. My mother never did. But when it came down to that talk about sex, I never had a conversation with daddy. Mommy, didn't happen. So even going forward, how do I have conversations with my kids? So help me understand, what was your experience in the talk?
I just want to touch on something you said, which is interesting. A lot of times I know for me, I didn't grow up in a household where it was taught, like you said, the birds and the bees conversation, or even for a female, purity, when you get your menstrual, for a second, let's just stay there for a minute. Like, were you taught to even put how to apply how to even be, were you prepared for that? You know, and is that something that takes away from your purity? Because I know you got some young people that's like, this is nasty. Why do we even have this thing? You know what I mean? But is that something that takes away from your purity? Because a lot of times women or young girls would say, oh, if I'm getting my menstrual now, I can have sex now.
Who said that?
I've heard that.
You said that? I know you did not say that.
I've heard that because they feel like when you get your menstrual, you become a woman now. So,
y'all, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, for me, none of that. You know, I was introduced to sex in a very, very strange way. I just did it. I was very young. I was so young. I can't even remember how old I was. I was a child when I began experiencing that part of my life. And I saw, it's crazy when you look back over your life and you see how something that is so sacred is introduced to you and how it can change the complete trajectory of your life. It was introduced to me. It was not special. It was not somebody I cared about. It was none of that. But it opened a door that led me to a very, very, very dark place. And I mean, I'm just going to share with you guys. I was 14 years old when I dealt with molestation from a very grown man. And it took a long time. Honestly, to be 100% honest with you, it took me to become a woman and look back on what that age is. Because at 14, I thought I was a woman. At 14, I thought that what I was engaging in was normal. But this man was much older than me. This was wrong. What was being done with me, to me, and I didn't know. I thought that was me becoming a woman. I thought that was the right introduction. But to be honest with you, it stripped my purity. It broke me. And honestly, it changed my whole life. And God had to really show me that what happened to me was wrong. Because for so long I harbored it and I said nothing was wrong with that. I wasn't raped, but I was put in a situation with a much, much, much older man that I should have never been in. And when I think about the age of 14, that is a child.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I should have never went through that. But I did. And it was dark for a long time. And God had to show me that was something that was taken from you. Before I could even marry my husband, I am not about to cry. Before I could marry my husband, I had to heal that trauma because that was trauma. And I thought that every relationship I had was based on that because that was my first introduction to worth. At 14 years old, oh, I'm worthy because this man can do this with me or he's saying I'm these things, but I'm a child. How is that fair? So that took me down a very dark journey, and I thank God for showing me that I am worthy.
Absolutely.
And that did not define who I am.
Absolutely.
I gotta say,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I just need to acknowledge the fact that she just spoke her truth and her transparency, and I'm sorry that even had to happen to you. And I'm so glad that you turned out to be the woman that you are today.
Thank you.
Because God knows there are so many women who go through these stages where they get their purity just stripped away from them, and then they're just broken. And they allow that trauma to segue into every relationship from there on. So I'm absolutely super proud of you.
Thank you for sharing that, because what you said is very profound in terms of being 14 and thinking you're grown. Because a lot of girls right now that are 14 really do think they're grown. And you mentioned that it was a situation that you either allowed yourself to be in, believing that you were grown enough to make that decision, but here you are, a grown woman, in retrospect is looking back and can say, again, the dangers of doing or giving away yourself prematurely is this dark period.
Yeah.
I want people to hear you say that, because you didn't say something happened and then something else happened. No, you said I went through a period of darkness. And I think it's very important that for those listening, whether it's mom or aunties or whatever the case may be, dads for that matter, recognize that you do need to hold your children, your daughters closer at that period, because I know we think we grown at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Yeah. And in this situation, this wasn't a decision.
Yeah.
It wasn't a choice to become unpure or untouched. For her, it was something that was just snatched away from her. So let's talk about, if you're okay, we're moving on. Let's talk about, you know, how that impact you, because I said, you know, a lot of times when you're broken, whether you're male or female, when you're broken, you take that trauma, that pain, that brokenness onto other relationships. And now you're breaking. You have this habit now, because you're broken, is the saying, hurt people hurt people. Yeah. So now that you're broken and you're hurt, you want to now take that and hurt someone else.
Yeah. It was so hard for me. I'm telling you guys, I thought that I was in the right situation. I did. Because I felt like, wow, this older man, and when I say older, I keep saying that, but you have to think of, like, when I say older, I mean way older. Like, I was a legitimate child, and I was put in a situation, and this person groomed me. This person continued to tell me how sexy I was. And I think of, like, 14, like, how, you know? I was sticks and stones. I was vulnerable. I was a kid. I just found a box like a little while ago, a couple weeks ago. And I was reading in this box a letter from me to myself at that time. I was a kid. I was excited about, like, life, and I read it and I'm like, this is a vulnerable, excited kid. Yeah. You know, who was happy to be an actress, who was happy to be booking roles and going to 7-Eleven to get a Slurpee, like, for real. But this person, for his own whatever, for his own desires, he allowed his darkness to enter into me at that time. I was so young, you guys, but at the end of the day, God is so sweet and he's so gentle. Amen. And he did not allow me to completely break. He walked me through this thing. He showed me when it was time, that it's time to heal from this thing. Yeah. He showed me that this thing came from the pure pits of hell to kill me, to take me out, to lead me down a path of darkness and shame and unworthiness. Yeah. But I'm thankful that he kept me grounded in the fact that my purity is found again in him. Amen. I can find, you know, it was hard because I felt so much shame from that, and there was so much trauma from that literally my mom said I went from night and day immediately. Everything changed. My behavior, the way I spoke, the way I dressed, because I was living up to the grooming of this man, you know? And he was able to go off and live his life and left this child with pure darkness. And y'all, it was hard.
I think this conversation is so powerful because if you notice the pattern of what she's saying, and if you take this onto a spiritual side, which we always do, this man's spirit was implanted in her. So his brokenness became her brokenness. This purpose that was destroyed in him, now he came in and stole her purpose. So it's interesting how when people, whether their purity is taken away or whether they decide to give it away, it's not just one of them things like we're just having sex. Because it's not just sex. Like ultimately sex is a soul tie. So when you're having intercourse, your spirits are tying together. So it makes so much sense as to why she now has to carry on this trauma. But what's so beautiful about Raquel that I admire so much is that you went back to your father and you found your healing in him. You didn't allow this guy, this man, this enemy to take control of your body mentally or physically. You said, no, I'm going to go get repurified. And my creator who has now rebirthed you and cleansed you and made you whole. And it didn't stop you or limit you from getting married or having kids. So I just want to say, I want to speak to the people who have been in situations like this, whether you have had your purity stolen or whether you decided at a young age or whatever age. Don't allow that to condemn you or put you in this shameful place that you can't get out of. Trust and believe that we are made new and we are made whole through our Creator. So go back to Him and allow Him to heal you and restore you and purify you all over again. Because we are born again Christians.
Yes, and as it is for the bodies, let it be so for the mind too.
Yes.
I think oftentimes we will give our bodies. And we will also give our mind and our time. And then what happens is we take on this spirit and this energy and we adapt to, we trade off our purity for confusion or negativity or bad habits. And now what we had in terms of cleanse or a space to be open and clear, now it's so confused in how we move. And if we're building our foundations at a very young age, with that confusion, we build more confusion, if that makes sense. So it's almost imperative, it's completely important that when you get to a point where you feel that pot is boiling, that it is now spewing over, take that minute to go back to the Father, to say, I need that re-cleansing, that re-washing.
What I like to tell parents in particular is watch your children. Watch your children, because a lot of times when there is a huge shift that comes in your child, it didn't come from nowhere. I didn't tell my mom what happened. I didn't express to my mom. I expressed in my behavior, but I never came to her and said, Mom, this happened to me. Mom, this, and let me tell you, it's interesting because my relationship with my mom completely changed after that. I actually grew hate for my mom because I felt she didn't protect me, but I felt she didn't protect me in something she didn't know she needed to protect me in. So I'm telling you, when the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, he's coming for blood. And that is why it is so important to stay connected, to constantly be talking to your children, constantly be empowering and affirming them in who they are, and not allowing society, the entertainment business, and, all these clouded things that come into the lives of our children to dictate who they are, because that situation changed me completely. And I'm thankful for it because it really did really get me closer to God. And He showed me that no matter what you've been through, I've never counted you out. I was there even when it happened. I never left you. I never forsake you. But now I'm able to speak about it because I never spoke about it. I never would talk about it because it was something that was shameful. But when God took on that shame, when He put His Son on the cross, His Son died for someone like me to find my purity again. I remember I got baptized. I got baptized much later in life. I got baptized as a child, but then I decided to get baptized as an adult way after this situation. I was so scared to touch the water because I felt like so many other people were going before me. And I remember telling God, how you gonna purify what I got? What happened to me? There's no way I can touch that water after everybody else and you can purify me. There's no way. And it was so crazy because he sent a woman to say to me before I went in, this was nothing but prophecy. She came to me out of nowhere. I didn't share what I was feeling. Only the Father knew what I was feeling. And she whispered in my ear and she said, the water is made new. And I knew I could step foot in that water and that he had already cleansed it. It was already new. And that day, I left it there.
That's so beautiful. And what she said is so important because, you know, God uses these experiences for us to go through in order for us to grow, right? But you only know that you're truly healed is when you can talk about it.
Yeah.
Because now it's no longer your burden. Now it's your testimony.
Thank you, Lord.
So you went through a test. Now you have a testimony to share to millions of women because you are going to save so many lives. You're going to heal and restore so many women because 8 out of 10 women went through that or are going through that right now. So I just want to say thank you.
Even because you had great advice to give to parents, an indicator when your child makes a complete switch, pay attention because there's something going on. What would you say to the 14-year-old you or to the 14-year-old that's watching? What would you say to a child that think, now I'm grown, I'm big, I'm this, I'm that? What words can you use to really kind of like penetrate that mind to be able to say, slow down, baby girl?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. The main thing is that any man, any grown man should never, ever touch you and should never have any influence over you, your body, or anything like that. You may feel grown, but trust me, you are not ready for that. It is not anything to play with. And if I could go back to the 14-year-old me, I think I would ask myself, what were you looking for? What was it in you that even allowed yourself to be exposed to that? But I remember not feeling that it was wrong because he made me feel this was right.
Yeah.
You know? And so I will say that root, that seed came from the lack of my father being there.
Absolutely.
I didn't have my father to tell me that I was worthy. I didn't have my father to say, listen, you my baby girl. I love you. I didn't have my father to say, hey, you know, I was looking for love in all the wrong places. So a predator, he looks for that. He sees that weakness in you and he goes after it. And, you know, I would say that at a very young age, it is so important to search for some type of validation, not even from your earthly father, but from your heavenly father.
Yeah.
I was 14 years old. I knew about God. I loved God. I've always loved God. But the lack of the love from my father, my earthly dad who he gave me, the void was so big that I was willing for it to be filled with anything. And the enemy saw that too and used it as an opportunity.
That is heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you shared. And I will add, as a person in terms of my virginity, I was one that willingly gave my virginity away to my high school sweetheart, and the whole, you know, how the movies make it look. We didn't go to prom. It was just one of those things where we planned, we talked about it, it was planned out, it was all these things. But in retrospect, and I was a high school student, in retrospect, I gave up something too soon.
Yeah.
And although it was a choice that I made, and I, again, thinking that I was grown, and I'm a high schooler, I mean, I can make these types of decisions, it ricocheted something in my life that this ripple went out, and every ripple that went out, I wasn't prepared for. As small as that ripple was, it was like a ginormous wave.
Yeah.
And that wave just kept crashing in and crashing in and crashing in because the foundation of the decision that I made wasn't based in the place of maturity.
Yes.
That's really good.
And as a result, it takes time. I mean, it's like as a child, we make decisions that as grown-ups we pay for.
Yeah.
And I always have to go back in my mind to, all right, Jody or Judy, my nickname is Jody.
Hold on, baby boy.
I know. My whole family call me Jody. So when I think of the little girl, I don't think of Judy. No one has ever called me Judy until I came to America.
Wow.
So I would always say, Jody, it's all right, this and that. And it's just interesting where I have to tell myself, although you made this problem or although you caused an issue for yourself, you're good.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
And we're in a space that you're safe.
Yeah.
But to be able to get there, people do need to take that time to recommit to purity in their space, in their mind, in their body, in their soul. And again, for me, it was a situation where I had to really cleanse myself by talking to myself and telling me, you're good, you're all right. Yeah. But what advice can you give to people that need to kind of take that moment to recommit to purity?
Yeah.
So, I mean, same thing with me. It was a decision that I made. I sort of kind of prepared for this moment, and I was in high school too. But I remember when the moment came, it was like I kind of tuned out of what was happening and was like, why am I doing this? So it was not the experience that all of my friends was telling me about, like, oh, it's amazing, blah, blah, blah. I literally in the moment was like, why am I doing this?
Wow.
Like, what is it? Because I honestly felt like I was shaming myself, or I felt guilty. I felt convicted, like I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why I felt like that, but I will tell you this, after the experience, I was closed off from him, from having sex again. It kind of made me feel dirty. Like I was 16 and I was like, I knew that I wasn't ready. And I always knew, because I've seen so many young moms and or just a lot of kids in my family, or a lot of single parents. I always knew, like, that's not what I want for myself. And I always knew that doing this came with a cost, came with a price. So there was something in me that kind of closed me off. And then I think when I know when it finally happened again is when I got pregnant. And that's when I was like, I know better.
Yeah.
I know better. So I was never one of those people that would just have sex randomly with certain people. I was always protective of my body at a very young age. I can honestly say that there was a voice, God's voice was instilled in me to value my body, to my body is sacred, my body is a temple, and to purify, to be pure as long as you can.
Yeah.
And I tried that even when I had my child and got divorced and went through my divorce. I was celibate because I remember, like, no, I'm going to be pure.
That's deep.
I'm going to go back to listening to God and knowing when is the right time, because I felt like I made so many mistakes. I think that a lot of times when you lose your virginity at a young age, whether it's being stolen or whether it's a decision that you make, I think that it changes your mindset. It shifts your perspective, and it just changes you as a person.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to talk about the fact that...
Can I add something real quick? Because I think I just got a download. This is not my own thinking. But it entered my spirit to say that having sex is an appetite. And when you have an appetite but you don't have a table to eat from, you eat from every table that you can get crumbs from. And that's what happens that's what happens when you dangerously give up this form of you.
Yeah.
And that definitely is something that I was like, whew.
Yeah, that's
I don't know who's looking for crumbs, but there is a table prepared for you.
Yeah, that's interesting because I remember for me, I would make the choice, because I'd say, this is the one. You love to say that too. This one's the one.
Right.
So he can get this.
Like, you
he's
really
the
know.
one. Yeah. And finally, I'm telling you, I used to do these mini fasts, right? And on my mini fast, sex was always on there. So, okay, I'm going to not drink alcohol, I'm going to not eat meat, and I'm not going to have sex. Mind you, this is pre-marriage. And I'm not going to have sex. And I used to wonder, like, God, why that one? And he was like, are you kidding? You could eat meat.
Yeah.
Take that off of there. Because he kept saying, I'm trying to talk to you. I have something for you, but you're clouding my space.
Yes.
And this level of purity that I need you to come to in me, it's murky waters right now. So every time you're laying down with this feeling or with this desire of, just an instant appetite of a crumb, you're leaving the table and you're still hungry.
Yes.
Because you haven't even witnessed the feast that I have for you. So finally one day God said, hey, enough is enough. Like literally enough is enough. I want celibacy completely. And people feel like when you talk about celibacy, it's like I'm holier than thou and
it's not
this
that.
and that. It's not that.
Yeah.
I chose that because I really said, God, when my husband comes,
Yes.
I want to know that I'm clear.
Yeah.
I want to be clear, and actually I want to give him a clear space.
Yeah.
I want the table set, but I don't want it eaten off of.
Yeah.
So he purified me in this moment. And to be 100% honest with you, during my celibate season is when God sent my husband.
Yeah,
That part.
Literally.
Same thing.
Literally. And I knew he was my husband because guess what? I didn't even have to tell him I was celibate. I was actually ready to give it up, and he said, ooh, hold on. Don't let us not like move in your brokenness. Like I can actually wait. I actually think you're worthy of me waiting. And that's when I knew, you sent him, Lord.
Yeah.
Because come on, y'all.
But it's funny because you say that, but I know me and Judy have a similar story because when I met my husband, he was celibate for 10 years.
Wow.
I was over 3 years. I was like,
So-
what? What's going on with you?
So that's the thing. When you decide to be pure, not just out of, I'm just going to be pure, but make the right decision. Position yourself in your body, in your mind, in your spirit, and watch how God flood you with more than you've ever could have asked, thought, or imagined.
God, sex
restores
is so
your heart.
intimate.
Yeah.
It's so
Restores-
intimate.
He restores
He
your
restores
heart.
your heart.
Yeah.
He restores your mind. He restores your memory. He restores your time, your space, your energy.
Yeah.
He restores you in a way that the memory has made you stronger.
Yeah.
And who you are today in the decisions and how you make the decisions, you have evolved into something greater that the next season is sweeter.
Yeah.
But look how God says that the heart is so deceitful. It's deceitful above all things,
Yeah.
which means that when is the first time you're ready to give it up? My heart just says, this is the one. Okay, well, that thing needs to be checked out.
Yeah, like
because
you
that's
really-
deceiving.
You really don't know. You
Yeah.
have to allow God to lead you
Yeah.
within that time. So I don't think that it's about an age. I think it's because a lot of times some people can get married at 18 and God will say, okay, now it's time.
Yeah.
But I just think that you really have to have that discernment. You have to listen to that inner voice. That inner voice is God.
Yeah.
It's this thing telling me to turn the corner, because a lot of people be like, yeah, something told me. No, that something
Well, that's
is
the
God.
name of God. That's his name.
Yeah. Something.
Name is something.
He says, I am. He just said, I am. So figure that out. Figure that out.
So I just want to say, what will we tell our younger children or our 13, 14-year-old self?
Don't start with me.
Listen, I've already have had conversations with my daughters, but I always hear my dad. My dad would always say, "Take your time," and that means slow down.
Yeah.
And I also, as an adult, it also means possess your time. So I don't want to possess something if it's not mine. If this is time, I want to possess what's mine. I don't want to take this one because this one isn't my time. This isn't for me. And I would tell my daughters, I would tell my children, I would tell my younger self, take your time because in this space, everything is good.
I would just say, love yourself. Love yourself. Know that you're worthy and that God loves you and his plan for you is so bright. And the man that's for you, he will wait for you.
What I would say to my child or children or 13-year-old self Know the power that you possess. God has given you something so sacred, so pure. Know your worth, know your value. Take your time. There is no rush. And know the power in saying no. And I will also just say, if you are going through something, speak up. Because there are so many women around you that is 9 times out of 10 going through the same exact thing that you're going through. And if it's not that if you don't speak up, no one can help you. If you don't speak up, no one can help you heal yourself. And if you don't speak up, then ultimately you're telling God, I'm okay with this situation. So if you want God to help you out of the situation, then you need to use your voice that he has given you. So you carry such a powerful gift that God has chosen to only give women. That's how powerful your purity is. So trust that inner voice. Be patient with yourself. And don't rush to get older, because you're going to experience a lot in this journey. And it's for your development. So
I wish you was younger.
Yes.
you are going to wish you were younger. So we thank you for tuning in to another episode of Soulful Sundaze. And catch us next Sunday. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave your comments below. We want to hear from you.
We love you.
Yes.
Yes.
And if you're still a virgin, we commend you.
Yes, and if you're not, we still commend you.